Hello everyone. Today I will continue telling you the story of the single mother Diệu Hân. I hope you enjoy watching the video. After Thành left to study abroad, the small house suddenly felt strangely bigger. Not because there were fewer belongings, but because one familiar presence was missing, the person who used to exist in every small corner of Hân's life. Every morning, Hân woke up with a sense of emptiness she couldn't quite put into words. She opened her eyes and out of habit reached out to the side, only to touch cold, empty space. In that moment her heart sank slightly. Thành was no longer there. He was in a very distant place, separated from her by a time zone, a sky, and thousands of kilometers. Hân did everything by herself, from cooking and cleaning to handling the responsibilities they once shared together. Everything still went smoothly, everything was still in order. Yet in every action, Tana's image quietly appeared. While cooking, she would unconsciously make an extra portion. While folding clothes, she would pause in front of his familiar shirt, still neatly hanging in the closet, unable to put it away. Some mornings, standing in front of the mirror, Hân felt an unfamiliar hollowness in her heart. No matter what she did, she thought of Thành. His warm, low voice, his gentle touches, the moments when he stood behind her in silence, yet made her feel completely at ease. She suddenly realized how accustomed she had become to his presence. So accustomed that when he left, the emptiness he left behind was not loud, but lingering and persistent. In the evenings after everything was done, Hân often sat alone on the porch, looking at the darkened sky. She searched for the stars, telling herself that somewhere, perhaps Thành was also looking up at the same sky. The thought did not ease her longing, but it made her feel less alone. Hân learned to be strong in silence. She did not complain, did not confide, only quietly endured the feeling of absence each day, because she understood that this distance was not abandonment, but a path they had to walk through, so that one day when they met again, they would cherish each other more deeply. On the other side of the world, Thành was also learning to live without her by his side. The first days of studying abroad were not as easy for Thành as he had imagined. The new city was vast and bustling, crowded with people, yet amid all that noise he felt strangely lost. Every morning, waking up in an unfamiliar rented room, Thành lay still for a few seconds, listening to the wind outside the window. There was no longer the soft sound of Hân's footsteps in the kitchen, no familiar scent of hot rice, no gentle voice calling him to wake up. Thành picked up his phone. His first habit was still to look for Hân's name in the call list. Then he paused, remembering the time difference between them. Sometimes when he was getting ready for class, it was already late at night for Hân. Sometimes when he had just finished a long day, Hân was only beginning her morning. That mismatch made Thành feel that the distance between them was more than just geography. Some evenings Thành cooked alone. Standing at the stove, he awkwardly tried to recreate the dishes Hân used to make. The flavors were not the same. Everything was missing something familiar. He ate slowly, eyes drifting to the empty chair across from him, unconsciously smiling before letting out a sigh. He had never thought that the absence of just one person could make a meal feel so lonely. In his most exhausting moments, Thành missed Hân even more. He missed the way she sat quietly by the window, the way she listened as he talked about trivial things, even the moments when she was silent, a silence that made him feel peaceful. Some nights, lying there staring at the ceiling, Thành thought of Hân managing everything on her own, and his heart grew heavy. He blamed himself for not being able to be by her side now, even though he knew the path he chose was for their future together. Back home, Hân was going through the same long days. The only difference was that she didn't say it out loud. She hid her longing in repetitive tasks, while Thành hid his in late nights in a foreign land. Two people in two different spaces, yet sharing the same sense of absence, missing each other in remarkably similar ways. One evening, just as Thành finished his class, he received a message from Hân. "Have you eaten yet?" Just one short question, but Thành stood still for a long moment. He typed back, "I have. What about you?" On the other side of the screen, Han looked at the words and smiled, though her eyes stung. And here Tan also smiled. A smile mixed with longing and determination. He understood that they were both trying, both enduring this loneliness, just so that one day they would no longer have to text such simple questions, but could ask them directly sitting face to face. The distance between them was still there, but their feelings had not diminished. On the contrary, they grew stronger with each passing day apart. The call ended. The phone screen slowly went dark, and the room returned to its quiet, as if no voices had ever filled it. Han remained sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, eyes staring blankly into the space before her. Throughout the call, she had tried to smile, tried to speak gently, asking if Tan was eating well, if his studies were tiring, if the weather there was cold. She didn't say that she missed him. She didn't say that sometimes just hearing his voice made her heart feel like it would break. Only when the call ended did all her effort dissolve. Han put the phone down and slowly lay on her side. The room was dark, lit only by a faint yellow light from the hallway. The pillow beside her was empty. She reached out to touch it, a habit she hadn't yet broken. In that moment, the longing she had held in for days suddenly overflowed. Han turned her face into the pillow, tears quietly spilling out. She bit her lip tightly to keep from making a sound, yet her shoulders still trembled with each breath. Not because she was weak, but because she had tried to be strong for too long. During the day she could stay busy, could tell herself she was fine. But at night, when there was nothing left to do, when all sounds faded away, her longing for Tan became painfully clear. She missed the way he leaned against the headboard reading, missed the sound of his footsteps moving around the house, missed even the moments when he simply stayed silent by her side. A silence that made her feel protected. Han suddenly realized she didn't just miss a person. She missed the feeling of being herself when she was with him. "Come back soon, okay?" She whispered softly, as if afraid that if she spoke louder, the longing would shatter beyond control. Tears soaked into the pillow. Han curled up, hugging herself tightly, just like the way Tan used to hold her when she was sad. For the first time since he left, Han allowed herself to truly cry, for the loneliness, for the distance, and for the love she was still protecting with all her patience. After a long while, Han slowly calmed down. She wiped her tears, sat up and reached for her phone. Before turning off the light, she sent Tan a short message. "Good night. I'm okay." She knew that somewhere far away, Tan was trying just as hard as she was, being strong for each other, even though deep down, both of them carried very long nights. The next morning, Han woke up earlier than usual. Her eyes were still slightly swollen from crying, but she didn't allow herself to stay in bed even one more minute. She sat up and took a deep breath, as if reminding herself that a new day had begun, and that she could no longer afford to be weak. She created a schedule so tightly packed that there was no room left for overthinking. Once the housework was done, she went out to work, moving from one task to another. Han took on extra jobs and extended her working hours, so that when she returned home, her body would be completely exhausted, able to fall asleep the moment she lay down. She believed that if she kept herself busy enough, the longing would not have time to rise. During the day, Han appeared fine. She smiled, worked diligently, and handled everything efficiently. No one knew that in every hurried movement, she was trying to escape the emptiness that clung stubbornly to her heart. Sometimes, while her hands kept working, an image of Tan would suddenly appear in her mind, him leaning against the doorway, asking in that familiar way, "Are you tired?" Han would freeze for a few seconds, then quietly lower her head and continue working, as if nothing had happened. On the rare afternoons when she had time to rest, Han still didn't let herself be idle. She cleaned the house, rearranged every small corner, wiped every shelf, not because it was messy, but because she was afraid of silence. The moment she sat still, the longing would rush in, vivid enough to make her heart ache. In the evenings, Han came home later than usual. The familiar road suddenly felt longer than ever. She opened the door and stepped inside. The house was as quiet as always. She turned on the light, set her bag down, and dropped heavily into a chair. Truly exhausted. Yet in that very moment, she missed Tan unbearably. If only he were here, just sitting beside her, she felt she could endure everything. Han took out her phone and looked at the familiar chat window. She typed a few words, then deleted them. Typed again, then deleted them once more. In the end, she sent only a very short message. "I worked a lot today." Far away, Tan read the message. He didn't know that behind that seemingly ordinary sentence was an entire day of Han trying to fill her longing with exhaustion. He simply replied, "Then remember to rest. Don't push yourself too hard." Han smiled as she read the message, but her heart sank slightly. She knew she was forcing herself. She knew that working more only calmed the longing temporarily. It didn't make it disappear. But for now, that was the only way she knew, to keep living, to keep waiting, and to keep loving him in silence. Han lay down on the bed and closed her eyes. Her body was worn out, but her heart still reached toward a place very far away. In the darkness, she softly told herself, "Hang in there. Just get through this phase." After a long period of burying herself in work, Han began to realize that both her body and her spirit were exhausted. Some evenings after work, she stood in front of the door for a long time, not rushing to go inside. Not because she didn't want to go home, but because she feared the familiar emptiness that would rush back. One weekend morning, Han cleaned up the small patch of land behind the house, the place where Tan had once jokingly said he would plant flowers for her someday. As she pulled out the first clumps of weeds, her hands became dirty with soil. Sweat soaked the back of her shirt, yet her heart strangely softened. She realized that for the first time in many days, her mind was no longer spinning with longing. Han began buying small potted plants. She didn't choose anything too bright or flashy, just a few simple, easy-to-care-for flowers. Every morning, she woke up a little earlier to water them, trim the leaves, and wipe away the lingering dewdrops. In those quiet moments, Han felt as though she was talking to herself, slowly, patiently, without needing to force herself to be strong. Sometimes, squatting in the garden and looking at the tiny shoots just breaking through the soil, her heart felt lighter. She thought of Tan, thought of the days he was far away, also steadily building his own future. Just like these seeds, no flowers yet, but silently growing day by day. In the evening, Han took a photo of the small garden and sent it to Tan. "I planted a few pots of flowers. They look quite nice." Far away, Tan stared at the photo for a long time. He imagined Han bending down to tend the plants, sunlight falling on her shoulders, peaceful in a way that made him feel both reassured and heartsore. "They're beautiful," he texted back. "You really suit this kind of thing." Han smiled. This time it was a genuine smile, not a forced one. She realized that gardening didn't make the longing disappear, but it taught her how to live with it more gently. Not running away, not forcing herself, just giving her heart a place to rest. As each day passed, the small garden behind the house grew greener. And along with it, Han slowly relearned how to breathe slowly, live slowly, waiting for Tan to return, no longer in exhaustion but in peace. One afternoon, just after Han finished watering the potted flowers, her phone vibrated. It was a message from the delivery service, informing her of a parcel. She was momentarily surprised. She couldn't recall ordering anything recently. The small box was handed to her directly. Han brought it inside, placed it on the table, and looked at it for a few seconds before opening it. Inside was a light beige scarf, soft and warm, neatly folded. The faint scent of new fabric mixed with a strangely familiar feeling made her heart tremble slightly, as if a part of Tan had crossed the distance to reach her. There was also a small card inside the box. Tana's handwriting wasn't fancy, but it was clear and steady. "It's colder here than I thought. I'm afraid there might be times when you feel cold back home too. Wrap this scarf around you. Think of it as me being a little closer to you." Han picked up the scarf and gently pressed it against her cheek. It was such an ordinary item, yet in that moment it made her throat tighten. She wrapped the scarf around her neck and stood in front of the mirror. It fit snugly around her shoulders, warm in a way that felt almost unreal. She suddenly remembered how, when Tan was still home, he was always the one reminding her to put on an extra layer whenever the weather turned cold. She sat down, took out her phone and messaged him. "I received it. The scarf is very warm." The reply came almost immediately. "Then I can rest easy." Just one simple sentence, but Han read it over and over again. She suddenly realized that even from far away, Tan was still quietly caring about every small detail of her life. The scarf wasn't just to keep her warm. It was a gentle reminder that she was not alone during these days of waiting. That night, Han sat on the porch, wrapped in the scarf Tan had sent, looking at the small garden slowly turning green under the yellow light. A light breeze blew past. She pulled the scarf a little closer and smiled softly. For the first time in many days, the longing in her heart no longer felt so heavy, because she knew that somewhere far away, there was someone who was thinking of her, little by little. In a foreign land, Tana's life was far from as smooth as he had imagined before leaving. His studies were intense, the language still not truly fluent, and the fast, demanding pace of life often left him utterly exhausted. There were days when Tan left class after night had already fallen, walking among unfamiliar crowds while feeling as though he were the only one existing in that vast city. During his most exhausting moments, Tan would return to his small rented room and sit in silence for a long time. He looked around the empty space, where there was no laughter from Tom, no sight of Han busy in the kitchen. Sometimes he lay back on the bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, letting the fatigue wash over him. In those moments his homesickness became painfully clear. There were times when Tan wanted to give up. Difficult lessons, part-time shifts that stretched late into the night, expenses that forced him to count every single coin. The pressure piled up until he began to question whether he was on the right path. But whenever he thought of Han and Tom, every thought of quitting quietly faded away. He remembered Han's eyes when she saw him off, full of worry yet also trust. He remembered Tom's smile each time the boy called out "Dad" through the phone screen, even though he could only see him in a small frame. Those memories became the support that kept Tan standing. Whenever he felt worn down, he reminded himself he could not afford to be weak because back home, there were two people waiting for his return. On some nights, Tan wrapped himself in a thick coat and stepped outside into the biting cold of a foreign country. He walked slowly, letting his mind settle. The cold wind stung his face, but his heart grew warmer as he thought of Han wearing the scarf he had sent, thought of Tom growing a little more each day. He believed that no matter how difficult things were now, everything would eventually pass. Tan threw himself into his studies, working twice as hard. He took on extra jobs, accepted late shifts, endured days of sheer exhaustion. Every bit of money he earned, every piece of knowledge he gained, he saw as a small brick building the future of his family. There were moments of complete exhaustion, moments of discouragement, but he never allowed himself to give up. In one message he sent home, Tan wrote only, "I'm okay. Please take care of yourselves." But behind those two words, "I'm okay," was an entire process of forcing himself to stand up again each day. Tan understood that his love for Han and Tom was not just in words, but in this quiet perseverance. They were the reason he could overcome every hardship in a foreign land, so that one day, he could return not only with longing, but with a solid future in his hands. That day was especially exhausting for Tan. The exam he had prepared for over many weeks did not turn out as he had hoped. His part-time job suddenly cut his hours. Tan walked out of class after night had fully fallen, the cold wind blowing through him, leaving his heart hollow. For the first time in a long while, Ton sat down on a bench by the roadside, lowered his head, and let the exhaustion rise until it nearly took his breath away. He wondered what he was striving for. He wondered whether this path was simply too much for him. In that moment of weakness, Ton even thought about abandoning everything and going back, just to be with Han and Tom, even if the future would be a little harder. At that exact moment, his phone vibrated. Tom's name appeared on the screen. Ton froze for a few seconds, then hurriedly answered, his voice rough. "Dad's here, sweetheart." On the other end, Tom's clear voice rang out. "Dad, I got a good grade today. I wanted to tell you first." Tana's heart tightened. He straightened up, as if being pulled back from the edge of a deep pit. "Really? That's amazing. I knew you could do it." Tom laughed happily, then suddenly lowered his voice. "Dad, are you tired?" It was such an innocent question, yet Ton had to turn his face away and take a deep breath to keep himself steady. "I'm fine. Hearing your voice makes me feel better already." Tom was quiet for a moment, then spoke slowly. "Mom always tells me to tell you to keep trying. Study hard and come back to us, Dad. I miss you so much." Those words went straight to Tana's heart. He closed his eyes, letting the emotions rise. All the pressure, all the loneliness he had been hiding for so long, suddenly dissolved in that moment. "I miss you too," Ton said softly. "Everything I do every day, it's all for you and Mom." On the other end, Tom laughed. "Then don't be sad, okay? I'll wait for you." The call ended shortly after. Ton remained seated on the bench, phone in hand, looking up at the dark sky. This time his heart no longer felt empty. He understood that no matter how tired he was, he could not give up, because there was a little boy growing up day by day, believing in him and waiting for his return. Ton stood up, pulled his coat tighter, and continued forward. The wind was still cold, the road still long, but his steps were steadier now. He told himself, just a little more perseverance, because somewhere far away, Han was quietly waiting for him, and Tom was calling him Dad. A reason strong enough to help him overcome everything.
Xin chào mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video hôm nay của mình. Hy vọng mọi người vẫn sẽ yêu thích những câu chuyện mà mình chia sẻ và ủng hộ kênh của mình để mình có động lực ra nhiều video hơn cho mọi người cùng xem. Và những video mình chia sẻ thì được phát hành vào khung giờ 7 giờ tối và 7 giờ sáng tại Việt Nam. Thì mọi người chú ý đón xem để không bỏ lỡ video mới nhất. Và nếu yêu thích và muốn ủng hộ kênh của mình thì mọi người nhớ bấm nút theo dõi để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất. Và nhớ chia sẻ đến mọi người để mọi người cùng biết và lắng nghe những câu chuyện của mình. Cảm ơn mọi người đã lắng nghe một phút chia sẻ của mình và đã ủng hộ kênh của mình trong suốt thời gian vừa qua. Hy vọng rằng sẽ được đồng hành cùng mọi người và sẽ được gặp lại mọi người ở trong những video tiếp theo. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người nha.